This is Musical Talk. Hello, and welcome to Musical Talk. I'm David Kingsmill, and there you heard for the first time the Musical Talk Overture, a new piece of music which Thos and I are going to experiment with as a theme tune for our shows. You will, during the course of this episode, hear a few other variations, and I would be interested to hear your thoughts about it, so please feel free to send them to david@musicaltalk.co.uk. In this episode, I am going to look at the new musical Roll on the Day, which recently played at the Etc. Theatre in Camden, and also the new production of The Mystery of Edwin Drood, which I attended recently with my friend Nicholas Chave, who joins me for a discussion about the show. Before we begin, however, a little request. I intend to take on a project over the next few months for occasional inclusion in future musical talks, and that is to look at the state of the British theatre scene, focusing of course on musicals. Is British theatre in dire straits, or is it flourishing? Why have so many new shows opened and closed again so soon? What is British musical theatre? Is there something still quintessentially British, or is there no longer a definable British element? I want to look at all of these questions and more, and would like your help. I hope, over the next few months, to speak to a variety of people about this: the general public, directors, actors, musicians, and fellow Musical Talk presenters. If there is a question you would like me to ask anyone, including myself, please email it to david@musicaltalk.co.uk. And now, on with the show. I went out on a warm Friday the 13th to go and see Roll on the Day, a new musical being performed at the Etc. Theatre in Camden and presented by A Stage Kindly and Knock Hardy Productions. With book by Roberto Trappini and music by Lawrence Mark White, with lyrics by both, this powerful piece tells the story of Echo, a Nigerian who is living in this country illegally. He lives by selling his own paintings by Green Park, and we join him as he has made street friends with Dan, who is selling typical English and royal wedding curios. They begin by saying how they are both interested in these girls in the song Wonders of Nature, but each for a different reason. Dan just wants to sleep with them, while Echo is looking for the girl that will set him free. Enter Lavinia, a beautiful American who takes a fancy to his painting style and commissions a painting of Echo's dream of what Africa could be. But is everyone who they appear to be? I spoke to the three actors, and in the course of this interview, I will allow them to tell what they told me of the story.
My name is Kendra McMillan and I play Lavinia.
I'm Sean Keating and I play Dan.
I'm Masaki Osakano and I played Echo Akinsola.
Well, I'm sitting here in the Etc. Theatre in Camden with the cast of Roll on the Day, which I have just seen, a new musical, and a very, very powerful one. I think there's a lot that's said in this, in a very short space of time as well. Mm-hmm. One act, and yet this extremely powerful story. Anybody care to give a brief synopsis for the listeners?
Well, it's about a Nigerian freedom fighter who gets expelled from his country in the dictatorship, and he finds himself in Green Park doing what he loves by selling paintings. And it's about how he befriends his fellow stall worker, Dan, played by myself, and how he falls for this American art lover, Lavinia. And it's the first real friendships that we think he's made since he's been here. And it's about him showing his vulnerability and how that comes to really knock him on his head in the last third of the play, or the piece, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And what's it been like sort of taking this as a new work and something that's relatively topical with all of the immigration issues that are going on at the moment, and putting this, what sort of reception have you had from your audiences for a start?
There are some people that you can definitely tell don't like it when they're in here.
Really?
Yeah, I think because it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to separate your own personal views or anything like that you have from the piece itself, and so instead of seeing Dan and I as actors, Sean and I as actors, you see us as these people who really are not very nice at that point in time. But there are people who have really, really liked it and appreciated the message that it's giving, and that's what you do whenever you do something that is topical and has a hot issue like immigration, racism, like capitalism. I don't know, lots of
extent,
different things.
yeah.
Whenever you have something hot issues like that, you know, people have like strong opinions about it. So they can either go one way with you or go the complete opposite way with you.
Sure. And Amasaki, you came in, if I'm not mistaken, you came quite late into the production, didn't you?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And not only that, but you've come into this extraordinary part of the Nigerian immigrant who's come in and has had this, is it 10 years he's lived in London, and he's had obviously a very difficult existence, and then he has the events of the play actually happen to him. What's that been like to play as a character?
It's been intense, so it's, you know, to say the least. But it's been very, very engaging. It was a lot of fun, despite what it may look like. It was a lot of fun because I enjoy exploring, you know, the darker side of society, so to speak, and the issues that people don't really deal with but know are there.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things.
And things that you never find in a musical.
Yeah, exactly. It's not conventional musical. You know, there's no dancey, showy numbers, and there's, you know, it's quite dark as well, and deals with like a really contemporary issue that's, you know, kind of it's very in your face. The way we as actors play it, it's very in your face, and I really quite enjoyed all of that. Really.
Yeah. There's an interesting interplay as well in this show, isn't there? Because there's these elements of very, very real, particularly the very top of the show. You really feel like you're sort of in with these characters. They're very truthful. And then there are these moments that are almost quite surreal. And you take out of that realism. And what's it been, what are the challenges that you've found of playing with these varieties within the piece?
For me, I see it, as a famous man once said, literally as a play of two halves. I do feel that the first half I am Dan, the Cockney street vendor, and then I do become Dan the detective. It's about in your mind. But the thing that I probably find a bit easier is with Dan the detective, it does become, as you say, a bit more surreal, to the point where in the song Roll on the Day, Kendra and I actually had a kind of we had a big song and dance number. We spent hours and hours choreographing this piece, and it got cut about the day before or the actual day of the show.
Well, the day after the first preview.
We did it for the first night in here. That's right, the first preview, and then it got cut because it was just too surreal. Because the point about that was you get to a heightened point where they just become these grotesque, almost caricatures. And our director Vic, who's brilliant, I was about to say sadly not with us. He's not dead. He's just literally he's just literally not here with us. Yeah. He came across to him as just too out of place for the rest of the piece. And if we had like the lighting and what he kind of envisaged in his head, then it would have made more sense. But it is, as you say, a play where you do play it naturalistically, very naturalistically at times. And then I guess it's the songs that I find personally as an actor the more surreal, especially Roll on the Day, the song, the more surreal element. But yeah, I think. Yeah.
And you've got a lot of lead up to Roll on the Day, haven't you? Because the theme with the augmented fifth is playing from the very, very top of the show, and it's just hinted at the whole way through. And you always.
This guy does a musical podcast. He hears it, man. He knows.
I'm a musical director as well, so it's kind of
brilliant.
But there's another song, isn't there, earlier on in the show that actually has it featured?
It does, yeah.
I can't remember.
Earth Touches Heaven.
Right.
Has
yes.
Yeah.
And then it really hits in. Obviously, it's the main theme of Roll on the Day. And Kendra, you've kind of got the turning point of the both the real surreal and the good bad side of these characters, where you suddenly reveal your alter ego, which certainly this evening, and I'm sure on many evenings, has elicited a vocal reaction from the audience. I don't know if you heard that.
That was really funny, actually. We're like, that was a big twist.
There was literally somebody in the audience that just went, "Oh no!" And actually, you heard, "Oh no." How do you feel? Everything changes when you hit that, because that's obviously immediately the whole audience. You've got this shift, and it's suddenly a much darker piece than it has, because you've already got this story of Echo, which is dark in itself, of having to flee from Nigeria, and then you guys dump him in it, essentially.
Well, I think that the reason the shift is so good is because people are completely set up for it to be a love story, and for it to like move into this like he's going to find salvation in the country with this woman, and then she just completely changes the tone and changes everything. Like when I come in that time, and I've got a different accent, and I've got a different objective, everything. All of a sudden it's just a completely different play. And so it is kind of fun being able to like get those reins and be like, what up? Ready? Are you ready for your world to be rocked? So, but yeah, it has been really interesting because playing the like ingenue at the beginning and having to be all innocent and like, oh no, I really like you and stuff like that, and like trying to have to get him to actually think that I am this woman is really hard when in the actual play you're not her. So you're playing a play within a play, and so it's all very interesting mind stuff.
And Amasaki, what have you found the challenges of kind of this piece, which is quite grand in its scale and in what it's trying to say, and yet you've got this incredibly intimate venue where you can really suck us in, but at the same time you've not got an awful lot of space to play with either.
Yeah, that's true. One of the things that we have all discussed and so forth was like one of the reasons the play ends where it does is because at that point in time we'd have to bring in other actors, other characters and things like that. But actually, even though it is quite grand and would, does seem like it would require bigger space, we have enjoyed playing it in the little space, and it does kind of hammer everything we want to hammer home.
And for the pieces of his, you almost don't need anything bigger.
Exactly. The set is, very minimalist and so forth. But I think it really does work because the message of the story is not in what you see, but in what you're given by the actors themselves.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it works. It's such a small, intimate venue.
Yeah.
So I think it was great that we got it here as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a perfect space for it. And I think that you're saying, giving from the actors, and I think that you guys have all given an awful lot into this, and it really shows in your performances.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you very much. I really enjoyed it, and thank you for your time as well.
No, thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers.
So, what was the production like? Well, for a start, it made very good use of a small space. A Spartan set consisting of little more than several sets of blue railings and the wares that both Dan and Echo were selling allowed the actors to move around comparatively freely. And although the musical director caught my eye a couple of times, tucked away as he was, at the back but in full view, I did not find his presence detrimental to my experience. The passion and power that the actors put into their performances was evident, and the earthiness of the piece took me in from the very beginning. Echo is seen at the beginning as a man who is clearly not happy with his lot, despite Dan's attempts to lighten the mood. But you are taken with him as Lavinia enters and his eyes light up with hope, which is all too soon to be dashed. The dramatis personae for this production is short and sweet, but all deserve a mention. Amasaki Osokono, a late addition to the cast, brought a palpable gravitas to the role of Echo, allowing you to feel his passion without getting carried away, and making you genuinely feel for him as he is emotionally jostled through the piece, to the point where, as you heard in the interview with the cast, an audience member gasped "oh no" as he was double-crossed by his supposed friends. He repeatedly says to listen the sound of the drum, and you can see his drum sounding throughout and hear the changes of timbre as its call alters in Amasaki's performance. Kendra Macmillan's Lavinia seemed to be a sweet temptress, flirting with Echo in such a way that you were not quite sure whether it was him or her painting that she really wanted, but you wanted it to be Echo. She traversed the fulcrum of the play effortlessly, suddenly shocking the audience as she revealed Lavinia to be nothing but the alter ego of a reporter, who had taped Echo's private words to her where he told her that he was in the country illegally. Sean Keating, as Dan, was a snarky, cocky street salesman at the beginning, brashly hawking his wares while ogling any girl that walked by and claiming that he would not be able to stop until he had had them all. Although I never quite warmed to him as a real friend for Echo, it was disappointing when his double cross, as an undercover immigration cop, was also revealed, compounding Echo's anguish. Although Dan's transformation wasn't quite as dramatic, or perhaps effective, as Kendra's, due to its slowness, it was nonetheless very strong. The lyrics and music were very compelling. There were some truly beautiful and heartfelt moments, and some where it would be difficult not to tap along were it not for the challenging material that the show deals with. The light-hearted banter in the opening songs is reflected all too darkly in the glee that is shown by the two double crosses shortly before the end of the piece. There were some very clever elements in both, with the early hinting of the tune, the main theme of the song Roll on the Day, catching my ear in particular, as noted in my interview. Trapini's book is well thought out, and his use of language and the change of characters after the double cross was excellent. I thought it was perhaps done a slight disservice by its necessary brevity, as it both hinted at depths we didn't get time to see, and possibly arrived at the end result of those passed-over debts a little sooner than expected at times. The creative team for the production itself also deserve a great deal of credit. Vic Sivallingham's direction made a lot of the characters, and we were given a great deal of insight into them given the time available. This was complemented well by Tom Turner's musical direction and Mary Kearney's design. Together, the three of them made a great deal of the material. Putting all of these elements together, along with the sterling efforts of stage manager Jennifer Hall, you end up with a production created and performed by 10 people, which leaves you with as many thoughts and questions as many larger productions. Echo's journey is long in distance but short in time, and yet it is also complete. We do not just see a man performing extreme acts, but we watch as he is frustrated and emotionally driven forwards by two unremitting personalities, until he sees extremity as his only possible alternative to a list of equally distasteful options. The audience is made to genuinely feel for him, and it could well be an effective eye-opener for many people. One question I found myself pondering was that of politics in theatre, particularly musical theatre. It would appear to me to be a double-edged sword with which a blow might be just as easily struck in either direction. Politics in and of itself is something that is always relevant and always in the eye and mind of the general public in one form or another. To that end, current political themes will naturally engender a form of empathy by the recognition of plight or purpose. Echo's trauma in Roll on the Day may be unfamiliar to many of us, but it is impossible to ignore the compounding effect it has when twinned with other information, and, sadly, there will be many who can sympathise with him, if not in his exact circumstances, or to such extremes, at least in the cause and effect. If the chord is struck true, then introducing this kind of political element can really engender the admiration of the public and draw in a crowd. There is the risk of driving a point too hard, presenting it in the wrong way, or just doing so at the wrong time, in such a way that an audience could be antagonized. In this way, an audience might be just as readily alienated from the show by its attempt, well-meaning or otherwise, to express a thought. There is also the consideration that the individual circumstances of the politics could age and become less relevant. In this case, it is possible to end up with a proportion of the show's meaning locked in time at the point it was created. The show could begin to date. One such example, discussed by Thos and myself some time ago, is that of Flanders and Swan. They were wonderful comedians and great performers, and their legacy of humour lasts to this day, but there are some elements that must be researched to be understood by the current generation. However, I believe that Roll on the Day succeeds very well in presenting its parable. Yes, it is extreme at points, but that extremity is earned by the work done earlier in the piece. I do not believe that it would rile an audience, and very sadly, I do not believe that the politics that the show discusses will die out for some time to come. I do hope that we see more of Roll on the Day. A powerful idea, well executed, and deserving of a good audience should it return. All in all, a 4-star production. As well as Roll on the Day, I also went to see the new production of The Mystery of Edwin Drood. Having recently closed at the Landor Theatre, it is about to transfer to the Arts Theatre, Leicester Square. I saw this production with Nicholas Chave, who joins me for a chat about it later. But first, I spoke to the musical director of the show, James Cleave, and to Wendy Peters, who plays Princess Puffer. Let's hear what they had to say. Musical talk.
Hello, my name's Wendy Peters and I play Princess Puffer in The Mystery of Edwin Drood.
My name is James Cleave and I'm the musical director.
So, what's it like doing a show like this? Because it's a very unusual musical. It's music hall, so it harks back to a much older form of musical than most people nowadays would be familiar with. You've also got this concept of it not being one plot.
Completely.
Because the plot is entirely, up to a point, is set, and then, because of the death of the author of the original book, the audience has to then vote about how it goes on, which is a rather ingenious idea by Rupert Holmes.
That's what I think that is the genius thing, that Rupert Holmes sat there and went, I'm going to work on this Charles Dickens novel. It's no ending. I'll make them up. It's just fabulous. And then to sit and write 6 different endings for murderers, fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't worked out how many combinations there are, but between
apparently the lovers combinations at the very end, because you vote on the lovers as well. There's 453 combinations of lovers.
Oh my God, Lord!
So I don't think we'll get to them all.
No, that's,
but it's scary.
I wonder if anybody could. I've not really done the maths on that. That's a bit terrifying.
I don't know about the murderers, but obviously with 6, but the lovers. Yeah, no, it's good fun though.
Well, I think that's what makes it enjoyable. I mean, for any person who works in this kind of area, variety is what we're all kind of after generally in what we do. And here we have a show where the whole thing is just variety, so we get to work in many different styles, and the fact that we have that kind of the sing-along before the audience come in is another intermix, and it's just a great opportunity really to be able to play in so many styles.
Yeah, you mentioned the sing-along. Now, I've seen a production of this before. Central did it 2 years ago, I think.
Yes, they did.
And they were more in rehearsal before the show, if I remember correctly. So is the sing-along something that you added, or that was...
Totally added.
I don't know is there anything scripted before the show, or is it left up to the
No, not at all.
team?
It's left up to the discretion of the team, and we decided that because we need the audience obviously to be on our side and very much and want them responding later on and clapping and applauding when they need to, that it's good to kind of get that idea in from the beginning and see if we can instill a bit of audience participation with them before the show starts.
Yes, absolutely, of which there is quite a bit.
Yes,
throughout
exactly.
the duration of the show.
Yes. I mean, audience participation, you either love it or you don't you really, if you're an audience. But at least if we've given them the opportunity to sing along if they want to, then they have an idea what might be in store for them.
And unless my memory deceives me, this was the first musical that was written, both book and lyrics, composed and orchestrated all by the same person.
By the same man, yes.
Are there any differences in a show that has been entirely done by one person? Because obviously there are very subtle differences, I think, when one person writes everything and one person does book and lyrics. What then happens when you add in orchestration as well? Do you feel that's changed from other things that you've done?
I think you kind of feel with the piece that he's felt like because it's totally his own baby, he can do exactly what he wants with it. That's the idea I get from it. So rather than having to maybe contest ideas with a lyricist or a librettist or whatever, he's just been able to go, well, I've wanted to write this for however long it might be. Now's my chance. I will do exactly the orchestrations I want to do, put it exactly how I like it. So it feels kind of like this kind of bizarre, crazy idea that's all come out of his head uncontested, and he's had the opportunity to do that.
Possibly slightly unfortunate timing in many ways for Drood, in the sense that it came out 3 months before Les Mis. So Drood did win a Tony or two, I can't remember exactly how many.
It did.
And then got eaten by what's become essentially
Maybe.
one of the biggest musicals in the world. And it's not done that often.
No, it's not. I also think it was ahead of its time in as much as the voting situation. Nowadays, I'm hoping, when we transfer to the arts, I'm hoping that people will understand the voting system more, because we have X Factor, we have Britain's Got Talent, all these programmes on television now where people are used to voting, picking up a phone or putting their hands up. And I think in 1986 and 87 here in town, people were a bit stunned by it. What's this? We've got to actually put our two penn'orth in.
Yeah.
Oh no, we've come to be entertained, not to help out.
Yeah.
And I think people are much more up for an evening out now.
Yes, because it's quite pantomime.
Oh, it is.
It's musical.
It's musical.
vaudeville pantomime. It's kind of in the progress anyway.
It's all a mixture of those kinds of things.
I wonder if it's the rather irony, isn't it, of the fact that a musical that Cameron Mackintosh kind of squished with has then come back and is now mimicking his TV programme, or Lloyd Webber's TV programme, but one which Mackintosh is involved with. And obviously Puffer's such a wonderful part, and she's kind of in many ways sort of Nancy gone bad, isn't she? Opium den owner.
I suppose, yes, in a way she is. She's the Bill Sykes version of Nancy. And I sound a bit like that sometimes, don't I? Maybe I should play more Bill Sykes, yeah. Yeah, she is. She is sort of that downtrodden, and because she comes out with such bravado in Act 1. Of, I know who I am, I'm Princess Puffer, I've got this den. But I love the transformation in Act 2 of her, when we actually hear her story. Because in Act 1 we just see this big brash music hall star, who's lording it about, has this opium den, is full of herself, and then suddenly when she meets Rosebud, she tells her story as to why she left her being her nanny. And it's a really sad story. A really sad story of how someone's life, which happens to lots of people nowadays, can just be turned around by the slightest thing. And it goes downhill from there. And that's what I love about it as well. Although as well as getting chance to be really sort of outrageous and brash and, what people are used to me doing, I also get that sort of intimate moment in Act 2 where I have a lovely, lovely ballad which tells her story.
And it's one of the very few moments, I think, tonight, certainly, where the audience weren't giggling or passing, because this is the kind of show where you can pass vocal comment mid-show, and
completely.
people were doing
and we'll react back to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if you get heckled, we do.
I got glared at by Neville on several occasions. Yeah.
He's got a big glare as well.
He's got a huge glare.
Yeah.
It was rather brilliant for his character.
No, it is lovely. It is lovely in that moment in Garden Path to Hell where, you know, because there is that comedy moment where it starts, where I call a chair on and I sit down and I start singing it. But within the first few lines, I think the audience sort of sits back and goes, okay, she's going to tell us a story now. And they're really quiet and they go with it, which is lovely.
It was unexpected because it's a funny show, and you spend the whole show laughing, and all of a sudden there's something you really don't want to laugh at.
Yeah.
And it does. It takes you a bit by surprise. And then obviously you go back into the voting again, and everything's kind of like,
back into the music hall.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously you were the murderer for us this evening.
I was.
Afternoon.
Yes.
Is that something that happens often? Have you been picked?
I picked fairly a few times. I think I might be in the lead, if you can call it a race at the moment.
Is there a tally?
We have got, yes, backstage we have a board, and it's all marked out for it. You know, Ollie, who plays the stage manager, James Throttle in it, has marked a board out. So we have the Datchery, we have the Murderer, we have the Lovers, and we're all, you know, numbers and then crossed off when you've done 5. I am in the lead at the moment, which sort of surprises me a bit, because Puffer, within the context of Mystery of Edwin Drood, is probably the least likely a suspect.
Yeah.
Because she's no actual immediate connection with Drood.
Yeah.
Only that, you know, John Jasper, his uncle, has come to visit her at her opium den, and he, you know, suddenly cries out Rosebud, and that happened to be the child that she was the nanny to. So she goes to investigate and find. So there's no direct, I don't like you, or she hasn't even met Edwin Drood. But it's lovely to be picked. It's lovely to have another number and, you know, give it another blast.
And you get to reprise The Wages of Sin, which, let's face it, is a wonderful piece of music.
Oh, yeah. I feel so lucky. I mean, it's one of the reasons I said yes to it. You know, apart from it being a fantastic part, I love the score. I love that. It's such a beautiful mixture of music, from classical through to the music hall, through to some really tricky company numbers.
Yeah, definitely.
No Good Can Come From Bad is one of my favourites.
Yes.
Around the dining table
and
at
actually
Christmas.
Has been directed in quite a complicated fashion as well, because you're walking
up and
around
down
each
on
other
tables,
over the tables.
Musical chairs. I think it's really clever.
It's not an easy one to pull off at the best of times, but actually possibly made more challenging by what's been done with it.
Yeah, no, I love the fact of that trickiness of the musical chairs and one being taken away because they're all fighting against each other. I think it's really, really great. But no, it was why I said yes to it was, you know, I've loved the score for years, since the original Broadway production, and I've sort of been waiting for somebody to do it. I kept saying to people and friends and producers, please do it. I'd love to. Please do Mystery of Edwin Drood. If I'm going to come back and do a musical, because I haven't done one for 15 years.
Really?
Yeah. If I'm going to come back and do something, I really want it to be something that I really want to do. And out of the blue, Matthew Gould, the director, who I was at drama school with 20 odd years ago, he texted me and said, I know it's probably a long shot. Are you busy? Do you fancy? And, you know, within a couple of hours, yes! That was it. I was doing it.
Actually, it's funny, I was noticing the audience rather did themselves out of a vote tonight by picking a female to play both Datchery and the Murderer, of course, that then left only one for
lover.
For the lover bit.
Yeah,
yes.
No, absolutely.
What's the reception been like for it?
The reception's been incredible, actually. Really, really nice. So many positive reviews, and just people like the setup of it. I think we've been lucky because we've had a very good venue for it. I think it's been ideal to start it off in the Landor.
Agreed.
I think a mistake that you could make with it would be to try to polish it too much, whereas here we can use this kind of basic black box and you can still see the rig, you can still see what's going on. So you just get the idea that, yes, it could be a travelling musical company that come in, they have 2 hours or whatever to set up, and then it's kind of go. And we're able to just kind of recreate that more intimate atmosphere in here, which I think makes it much more successful.
It's so small here at the Landor. Our dressing room is literally a door out of the auditorium, and you hear everybody going and exiting at the end of the evening, and just really happy and smiley and elated, and they've obviously had a great time, and that's such a lovely feeling to know people have gone out and enjoyed it.
Yeah, difficult not to with this show, I think.
Well, I think so. Whether you like the concept or whether you don't like some of the music, there is something for everybody within the show. Whether you like music hall or whether you like classical or you like pure musical theatre, there is something for everyone. And you have that bonus of putting in your 2 penneth by choosing who you want to do the ending.
Absolutely.
You know,
and a wonderful incentive to come back and see it again.
Absolutely, because there was somebody this afternoon who up the back who obviously didn't think it should have been me. Because when Rosebud was chosen for lover, I heard him say, because I was stood right by him, she should have been Murderer. And I I wanted to turn around and say, well, sir, if you want to come back again, you may vote again. Because that's the thing, you can come again another time and see a completely different act too. Depending on who's voted for Datchery, and then who's the murderer, and then the lovers.
Yeah.
So
I mean, straight off the bat from the last time I saw it, we had a female Datchery, female murderer. I saw it last time with a male Datchery and a male murderer.
Yeah.
So even there you've got a difference, let alone the fact that it's different character as well.
No, completely. And that's the fun of watching it and the fun of being in it, because we all have to be completely on our toes, because we don't know who the murderer is until Durdles, the character, actually announces it on stage. Nobody tells us beforehand when the voting comes in, who is it going to be? We've no idea. So we all stand in a circle. The murderer is, and we're all going, oh, God, is it me? What's my first line? What's my first line? No. So it is lovely to have that genuine surprise of being the murderer.
Yeah, perhaps it's a question one shouldn't ask, or maybe one doesn't want to be asked, but has anybody been caught out?
No.
Excellent.
Not so far. No, luckily we haven't had that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you could be, quite easily. What I tend to do is, as Jasper's doing his confession just beforehand, I tend to just try, without being obvious, to have it just going through my head, the first few lines, which is hard when somebody else is singing, but it's just a case, and it's the lovers thing as well. If I'm picked for a lover, I make sure I go through my line and the first line that I have in my head.
Yeah.
Because we have speeches for the lovers as well before the actual song.
Yes.
So as long as I know, as soon as they announce who the male lover is, you go, right, Sturddles, right, or whatever, right, it's just, the first line with him is, it's in.
Yeah.
Because it is tricky trying to think up.
Yeah, definitely.
6 different lines.
One thing I must ask from a musical director's point of view, what challenges are there, if any, really? Because I have seen a copy of the score.
Yeah.
With suddenly having to change which number you're playing at the end of the piece based upon who has suddenly been declared the murderer.
Yes, when I first looked at the score, I was thinking that myself. Post-its are the way forward. It's all marked up. It's all
Fair enough.
Marked up in colour coding. Yeah, that's the only way, because there's some very quick changes in it.
Yeah, absolutely. They don't give you very long between the votes and the actual performances
Not
of
at
those
all.
final
It's like
songs. Although Out on a Limerick and Perfect Strangers, if I'm not mistaken, are the same for whoever sings them. It's just the lyrics that change.
Limerick has 2 key changes. Yes, there's a female and a male version.
Right. Okay.
And yes, Perfect Strangers is the same each time. But yeah, there's some very hairy moments there. We're just doing ever so quick turns, trying to get into it.
There's almost an element of audience participation for the band as well, isn't there? But I mean, yes, obviously the MD is addressed at several points during the show.
He has a part in it,
You've got the little tally-hos in off to the races, but also you've got those elements where it's the band's responsibility to draw the audience's attention to a clue, and you have that split second where there's a little musical sting, and all of the cast looks out at the audience looking suspicious, and then it comes back to it as well. Do you find that gives the show a slightly different feel for the band?
I hope that it does. I think the band is starting to get used to it. I MD a lot of pantomimes myself, so I'm kind of used to that. Lots of interaction between the band and what's going on stage, and the musical stings and the sound effects and all the rest of it. And the more there is of it, the better, as far as I'm concerned. And I think the band are coming around to that idea as well. And it's nice, again, as part of the story, to feel that you are part of the Music Hall Royale. As a member of the band, you'd be travelling with them. And I think that just helps to tie the whole thing together.
What do you think about the future of this? Because obviously, shortly after, I would imagine, the date that this is going to be going out, this is transferring into the Arts Theatre. It's being picked up for a month, I think.
Yeah, we're just in a month at the Arts.
It's in a relatively small but well-known theatre, and it's moving into something with a bit more of a profile. Do you think this is going to be the resurrection of Edwin Drood? I
really hope so, because I think it needs to be seen by a lot more people.
Agreed.
Not necessarily in London, I think anywhere in the country, because I also think music hall is now a dying art. And of course the City of Arises in Leeds has just been refurbed and is absolutely beautiful again. So it needs to be brought back, so younger people nowadays understand what music hall was, because it was the entertainment in Victorian times. There was no television, there was no radio. People went out to the theatre and were entertained with live performances. And I think that we need to bring that back.
And I think fill in some gaps, because I think a lot of girls will have Moonfall in their repertoire.
They probably have.
And I think, because they're in the musical theatre anthologies, these books. It's Jasper's Confession. Likewise, I auditioned for Trinity with Jasper's Confession.
Really?
I knew the show by then, but I don't suppose many people did, and I know I surprised some audition panels by bringing it out, because it's not done. Do you think there'd be logic in doing a cast recording, because both of the cast recordings off the market, can't buy them.
Really?
There's two of them.
Oh, I can sell mine on eBay.
You'll get about 70 quid.
Will I?
Well, you used to. I don't know what the market's like now, but when I bought mine, at the time I bought my copy, both of them were going for about £60-70 on eBay, because they're just, you can't find them.
You know what? I think it's a really good idea, and I do think it would be lovely to do a cast album. Maybe that's something I could chat to the producer about and say, even if we do a live album, because that seems to be the trend now with shows that aren't lasting too long.
Yeah,
they do
and
a live recording.
The Arts might be a really nice venue for that too.
Yeah.
Intimate,
it'd be nice to have the
but
audience
sizable
reaction.
For the audience. Yeah, exactly.
Even for my kind, for Wages of Sin and those types of songs, to have the audience reaction would be lovely. So it may be something it'd be lovely for us to do and have a recording of it.
Definitely.
But no, it'd be great fun. But I do think Drood needs to be seen a lot more. Whether anything happens after the Arts, I have no idea. But doing 3 weeks here at the Landor and then 4 weeks at the Arts has just been lovely, because it's I've got into the swing of it. And it's not going to be for too long. I'm sort of I'm not one of those people who would be happy doing something for 6-9 months a year. I like to do something, get what I can get out of it, entertain some people, and then move on to something else. But this is perfect. It's lovely. And the Arts is such a lovely little theatre. And to be right in Leicester Square, I've said to everybody, we should go out as a company, as the musical company, in costume, around Leicester Square, flogging flyers, as Music Royale, getting everybody in, getting the American tourist thing, because I think the Americans would love it as well.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
It's so quaint and so British, it'd be fun.
Yeah. What's your reception been like? Because obviously you've become known sort of primarily, I suppose, for your time in Coronation Street.
Yeah.
What's it been like being on a small venue where you're less dissociated from the audience, perhaps, than you might be if you went on at the Palladium or the Apollo Victoria or something like that, and yet you're somebody who's very well known to the British public? Have you found that that's actually... Has your response been moderated by the fact that is your...
No, I don't even think about that. It's weird. I'm loving the fact that it's such an intimate venue. I think my smallest before this was probably 100-seaters. I did a one-woman show in Ireland, a play, and I did little theatres then. I love the fact that I can come out and you see people's faces and you see them enjoying themselves, you see the reactions, and I don't feel it's me, because even because we're playing a show within a show, even when we're out mingling with the audience, I'm still another character. Yeah. So it's not me. And I love any banter. I'm terrible. Somebody starts on me, I'll step back on them, as Angela. I love all that. And I just love their reactions. And it's lovely seeing people sitting there enjoying live theatre. And not feeling intimidated. Because we try at the beginning not to be too... People aren't going to come at the Arts now. Oh, my God, they descend on the audience. We're gentle at the beginning. We ease you in. We don't expect full out singing. We just do a welcome and hello and how lovely to see you. So we are quite gentle with the audience. Because we want them to enjoy it. We don't want them to feel scared or intimidated by us.
No, and it's nice you've got that introduction, of course, right at the very beginning of There You Are, which I think is one of the outstanding chorus numbers.
Yeah, it's a great number.
In musical theatre, let alone in the... I think it's beautifully designed.
It's beautiful.
And yet you have all these people engaging with the audience and saying, hello, this is... There's fourth wall, not there.
Yeah.
We're going to come out and talk to you.
You've come to a musical, and this is what you're going to be like, or it's going to happen all night. It is a fantastic number, and I remember watching it over and over again when it was on the Tony Awards.
Yeah,
I was at college.
I'll hold my hand up.
I was at college, and I lived in a house. I shared a house with Stephen Mear, actually, and he came the other night, and because I'd said, "Oh God, look, can you believe I'm doing this? Come and see us." The amount of Sunday afternoons we spent watching old Tony Awards and doing it all with. I said, "I can't believe I'm Puffram. We're doing Drood. It's fab." So he came the other night and was really supportive.
And what about the orchestration? Because you've got a band of 5. Mm-hmm. Is that smaller than Rupert Holmes' original orchestration?
Severely,
it is, isn't it? Because I think it was about a 25.
It was far more orchestral than the original orchestration.
Was this reduction provided to you, or is this one?
It's been specially done by a gentleman called Tony Osborne for this production. So he took away, I think all he had was a piano vocal score and a CD with most of the numbers on. And he took that away, beavered away for a couple of months, and came up with this amazing arrangement for 5-piece.
In many ways, there's not an awful lot to draw on, is there, as a musical director? Because obviously you've got the presentation of the CD. How much interpretation did you put into it, and how much was based on interpreting what was done before?
I think... Whenever you hear things on CDs, subconsciously something goes in.
Of course.
Whether you want it to or not. So some of what's gone before will have gone in, but then because we have the new arrangements, I'm able to step aside from that anyway and decide what works best as a 5-piece. But for the stuff that isn't recorded, certainly it was me making my own mind up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's nice to be able to have that degree of freedom in a way. I'm quite glad it's not recorded, because then we can take quite a fresh look at it.
Nick.
Hello.
Hello. Well, first of all, what did you think of the show?
I thought it was really entertaining, actually. It was refreshing, in my eyes, actually, because not often in musical theatre these days you get a lot of audience participation. It's not a new thing, but it's sort of something that regular theatre goers don't expect to do.
Yes, it's rather limited, in fact, to pantomime on the whole.
Yes, that's very true. I mean, some people might see it as a very pantomime thing and might look down upon it, but I think what Rupert Holmes has done is very well written, actually. And especially what the production today, yeah, I think it was really good what they did with it. It was fun, it was upbeat, and the fact that they informalised a sort of greeting of the audience at the beginning made you feel more welcome.
And it was very clearly set in its musical roots, which is obviously what Rupert Holmes intended with this piece.
Yeah, the musical roots. And I've done musical with several students at Trinity, but I think I find that musical actually needs the staging of it and sort of liven things up, and you get involved with it. That's the actual atmosphere of musical.
Yeah,
it's intended for group participation.
Well, we were discussing this on the way home, weren't we? And we said that very much nowadays, musical theatre can be split out into its component parts of the acting, the song. The song can stand alone and be done in its own right, even as a concert piece, although it does obviously lose something in the translation. But there is perhaps something about Drood and about the musical style where, particularly given the repetitive nature of some of the songs, if you take it out of the theatre, it becomes not necessarily dry, but rather bland.
Yes, exactly, yeah. And I think that's where they've succeeded today. They've incorporated music quite well into the show, where yes, it's in the roots of where it's set and where it's written, when it's written.
I have in front of me the list of Tony Awards that it was actually up for at the time. It won 5. Best Musical, Best Book of a Musical, and Original Score, both of which, of course, were Rupert Holmes, and we'll come on to that in a moment. And the Best Performance by a Leading Actor, and Best Direction of a Musical. It was also nominated for another 6, and that's not even touching on the Drama Desk Awards, which looked to be about the same number again. So it was an incredibly successful show. A very good cast, of course. I think we both agreed very much that this is something that deserves the attention that it had back then.
Yes, absolutely.
And, well, a unique musical at its time. This record has been superseded since, but at the time, it was the first musical to have been produced which had the book, the lyrics, the music, and the orchestration all by the same person. Book, music, and lyrics, not particularly unusual. But adding the orchestration into that as well, of course, that was a complete first.
For the 1980s, especially. I mean, these days we do have, for example, Jason Robert Band has an example of that, who has done that. But in those times, I believe it's very unusual to find a single person to have written music, lyrics, book, and done their orchestrations. And I think we discussed earlier with the musical director that it gives the sense that it is your project, you can do what you want with it, and you can alter it as you wish. You don't have to put forward ideas to other people, and you can change it accordingly.
Now, this show ran at the Savoy Theatre back in 1987, so not particularly long after its Broadway run. It was also put on in London in 2007 to 2008 at the Warehouse Theatre. I believe that those are the only major London productions that have happened, and if somebody wants to correct me about that, I'm more than happy for them to do so, but I don't know of any others. And now it's finding itself at the Arts Theatre in Leicester Square 4 years later. What do you think about... I mean, I think the Arts is a perfect venue for this. As I think the musical director said to us earlier, it's a nice, small, intimate stage, and yet it can fit 300 people in, which means you are going to attract audiences. It's in a prime place next to Leicester Square. Possibly the findings of a good place for this to be rediscovered?
Absolutely. I mean, in centre of West End, I think it was Wendy who mentioned in the interview that they suggest going out in their costume, flyering and getting people to see it, because it needs an audience. You can't do the show without an audience.
No, you can't. And more than most in this case. It's not just you need it to make a good show, you actually need it to finish the show.
Yes, absolutely.
If it's a tree falling in a forest, if you do this production with no audience, does it actually ever finish, or does it just go on in perpetuity until such a time as somebody in the cast actually does kill somebody else? But no, it does. It needs that audience there for that participation element, which is vital to the plot. Multiple endings, of course, is something which the two of us have messed around with in our time discussing one of our musical projects, which will remain nameless for the time being. But something that Rupert Holmes has done to spectacular effect here. 453 possible partnerships in the partnership at the end, which is arguably the least important of the whole lot.
Yes.
And is just there to create a happy ending. And yet you also have a choice of 3 people, I believe, for Dick Datchery and up to 8 for the murderer, depending on who's been chosen for Datchery earlier on in the play. A complicated show, but not. It's complicated until it's put on. And then as soon as the audience finishes it, it becomes incredibly simple.
Yeah.
A bit of an enigma to itself.
Yeah.
What really stood out for you about this?
I think what stood out for me was like the joviality of the entire thing. As soon as you walk in, you get the sense of entertainment of music hall, and especially director Matthew Gould did with it. You just go straight into an audience participation with music hall as well, not just the voting for who is the killer, etc. It really gives that sense of, we're going to have a good night and enjoy it. I think general upbeatness of it was what stood out. I mean, I didn't expect it to be so out there.
Quite. No, it's not, perhaps, particularly given that it is Dickens and that you have that precedent set by Oliver, which, of course, is the best-known musical translation of a Dickens novel. There's Pickwick, the musical, which I know there's a soundtrack with Harry Seacombe on. So there's some big names in other shows, but Oliver outstrips them all, particularly recently, of course, given that it has just finished its run on the West End. And you expect from that dark, gritty musical. And this has its dark, gritty moments, which are very well earned by the fact that the rest of it is absolutely ridiculous.
Yes.
Talk to me about the grit.
Yes, I feel that the actual stories, especially Puffer's story in the middle of Act 2, it's a great moment. It brings everything down and you suddenly realise it really takes a turn emotionally, both character and audience, and you really relate to her and feel for her. And especially for Rosa as well. I think, like Wendy said, and then suddenly, here we go, let's just get back into the comedy. And it's great. But I think it's a good balance, actually.
Well, it's nice because it does keep that little bit of what Dickens was writing. It's almost the opposite of, it's Nancy gone bad, it's Oliver gone bad, really, isn't it? It takes those moments of levity against the grit of Oliver and actually reverses it so that you have the moments of grit against the levity.
Yes.
Very difficult to get hold of in terms of music. I've been having a look while we've been talking. There are only 2 copies of it selling on eBay for £20 and £30 respectively. And if you try and buy it from Amazon, you're looking at a minimum of 50. Very sadly, out of print recordings. There's 2 versions of this CD. There's one which includes the song Ceylon, which we didn't hear tonight. It was cut from the show, and only has 3 of the possible Murderer's Confessions, I think. There is the other version, which actually does not have Ceylon, but has all of the Murderer's Confessions. I think possibly barring one, which was written in later. But they're both incredibly difficult to get hold of, and therefore, go and see this show, because it's one of the only chances you're likely to get in a hurry to actually listen to it.
Absolutely.
As much as anything else. And it's a show that does deserve to be listened to. We've already discussed there's some wonderful music in it. Possibly among the better-known pieces being Moonfall and Jasper's Confession, but there's a lot of fantastic music in there. We mentioned in our discussions earlier the absolutely marvellous opening ensemble number, There You Are, which was performed on the Tonys back in, I suppose it must have been 1986, when it was actually awarded. And it was performed then, and I have seen that recording. That is on YouTube, if anybody cares to look at it. There are some brilliant songs in this piece, are there not?
They're so lovely to listen to, actually. So different from other musicals around at the moment, especially. Like you mentioned, There You Are. and Moonfall, and especially what I particularly liked was the Moonfall Quartet.
Yes, the reprise that comes in a moment later.
Yeah, which was very nice, and all these individual lines intermingling. And also the fabulously staged No Good Can Come From Bad, which was like a musical form of musical chairs, basically.
It was indeed. Crossed almost with an element of farce.
Yes.
No doors opening. The entire thing took place around one table, and yet the amount that they managed to seem to do while simply weaving around this table was quite incredible.
And over.
And over.
Yes.
Yes, listeners, imagine an infinity symbol of people walking around and over a table, and you're not actually far off what was going on while singing what is a rather complicated little song, particularly harmonically. He doesn't stint on his harmony, does Mr. Holmes. He uses an awful lot.
Very much so.
And I think we also mentioned earlier, of course, the one song... I should have said at the beginning of this that we have two different opinions here, because we have somebody who knows the musical very well in terms of the soundtrack and has seen it before in myself, and in Nick, somebody who has never heard the full soundtrack and has never seen the show before today, with the exception of Both Sides of the Coin, which I played you yesterday. And at the time... your reaction was, wow, that's incredible, and even more so seeing it live, I would have thought.
Even more so, yes. I mean, the speeds that they actually went at the end, I couldn't believe how well I understood it, to be honest, actually.
Yes.
I mean, I actually understood the word.
Kudos for the diction.
For the diction, absolutely. I thought it started fast anyway, but then they decided to go even quicker, which was great.
Standout performances for you?
Well, I think Jasper actually stood out for me. Daniel Robinson. I think he played the part really well. Really intense at times, and then really comedic in the other. Really gave a sense of the bipolarness of him, which was interesting and very intense, actually.
Took it very extreme.
Very extreme.
The last time I saw this production was at Central School of Speech and Drama. They did it it must have been 2010. And I thought that Jasper, I very much got the bipolar nature from that performance, but Daniel Robinson here really took it to extremes, to the point where I imagine, having not seen it before, there was a question mark over exactly what kind of character he was from his first 5 lines.
Yes, exactly. I just couldn't stop watching him, to be honest. Great facial expression, great voice as well.
Yep.
Stunning voice. Yeah, he just brought good dimension to the character, definitely. And I will mention Wendy Peters as well.
Yes.
She great interpretation of that role. Princess Puffer. Fabulous name for a character.
Indeed, especially the owner of an opium den.
Indeed. Obviously coming from Coronation Street, and she is a soap star. I think she brought some elements of her outlandish character to the role. Definitely. Yeah, she was over the top, and she accentuated the role in all the right places.
Perhaps embodied her... I believe her character is described as the grande dame of the music... Is it the Music Theatre Royale, I think it's called? Their music hall.
Yes.
The grande dame. And she very much took that into her role. Her song, The Wages of Sin, she very much inveigles the audience to join in.
Yeah.
And actually did that very charmingly, I thought.
Yes.
But in a kind of, oh, go on, you want to sense.
I mean, didn't she come up to you in the audience at the beginning?
At the very yes. Oh, I was quite touched by that performance. Literally, yes. The section at the very beginning of There You Are, where the characters are introduced whilst being in amongst the audience.
Yes.
It's a very nice, light-hearted way to let the audience into the fact that they are going to be a part of this experience. Because at that point, they haven't been told in the production that they are going to help, because that just starts, and then the chairman addresses afterwards.
Yes.
So yeah.
What were some of your favourite points?
Actually, I think sitting where we were, it was very, very difficult. David Francis playing Neville Landless, it was very difficult not to admire his facial expressions. We had several of them. In fact, I think I had one shot directly at me at one point where he threatened to kill me.
I think he actually did.
For not voting for him for murderer, which seemed bizarrely ironic. Actually, I really liked his performance. I thought he had a great command of the stage.
He was great.
And I thought that just watching his face was a masterclass in facial theatre.
Yes.
And how much can be done just with facial expressions. He could stand there absolutely stock still, not move a muscle, contort his face, and you knew what he was thinking.
Yeah.
Very, very good. Of course, the two that you have mentioned as well. And I think also Dennis Delahunt, who plays the chairman, he was very engaging and really has a very, very crucial role in this piece because he is the narrator. He is not unlike the narrator in Into the Woods. He will pop out and drive the action on. And he is, in many ways, the fourth wall. When he chooses to break it, it's not there, and he frees up the rest of the actors to break it himself.
Yes.
And therefore, he's actually got an absolutely crucial part that has to maintain a very delicate balance, which I thought he did a very, very good job of. And a very good performer as well. And as we were saying earlier, to stand up with Daniel Robinson, it's the two of them that sing both sides of the coin.
Both sides of the coin, yes.
You know, one could see the chairman and the role of somebody who sits on the side and narrates most of the time as being given to somebody who is not a competent musical theatre performer and is more of an actor. Dennis de la Hunt goes absolutely full out to prove that that's not the case in this, and that the chairman does need to be an extremely good singer and able to sing, dance and act all at the same time in a song that arguably makes a lot of the patter in Gilbert and Sullivan seem almost simple.
Yes, quite.
If nothing else, because of the speed that Holmes dictates it should be taken at. Also a cast that is extremely multi-talented. We were discussing this on the train on the way home, and looking at the programme, we have people who have done all sorts. Looking simply at the back page of the programme, Richard Sterling is a writer and has written a biography on Julie Andrews. Paul Hutton, playing Durdles, also a choreographer, it would seem mostly on pantomime. And I believe I saw him many, many years ago as Flat Top in Starlight Express. Lula Gita, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, sings in a vintage trio called the Singing Sweethearts. Dennis de la Hunt writes and directs and acts in an evening of Victorian entertainment called Soirée, and David Francis, indeed, is appearing on concept albums of new musicals and is therefore, you know, obviously involving himself in development even as a singer and an actor in musicals, which I'm sure many of those in this programme have probably been involved in their time. So they've actually got a cast here of people who have brought a lot of literary and cultural talent to the table as well. Probably quite important for a show like this. And then I think probably a final word needs to be given out to Rupert Holmes. I mean, what a stunning show, really. And for him to have done it all, it was also his theatrical debut. It was his first attempt as playwright. He has since written another Tony Award-nominated play in 2003, Say Goodnight, Gracie. But to make your professional playwright debut and walk away with 5 Tonys and 6 further nominations is not something that can be sniffed at.
Definitely not.
And well-deserved, I think.
It's a great success of a show.
Well, there we have it, I think. The Mystery of Edwin Drood, an absolutely fantastic production. It's running in the Landor Theatre until the 5th of May, at which point it disappears and then reappears for previews on the 18th at the Arts Theatre in Leicester Square, then running until the 17th of June. And I think I can speak for both of us when I say we can heartily urge everybody who hears this, and indeed everybody who doesn't, to go out and go and see this show.
It's a very worthwhile show seeing. Coming from someone who hasn't seen the show before, has heard very little of the soundtrack, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would definitely want to see it again purely for enjoyment, and also to see different endings.
Absolutely.
As there are many.
And even if the endings are quite subtle, of course, in this kind of show, it's never going to be the same performance, because the audience reaction will determine it. So, yes, and if you have seen this show, then go and see it again. We want to see... You know, the next time I will go and see this at the Arts, and I want to go there and see a greater percentage of the audience filled than was there filled today at the Landor. Because although it was a very enthusiastic audience, it wasn't a big one. Maybe 50% of the house along one side and one side empty, which is a great shame, and definitely a show that deserves a bigger audience than that.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Nick, and I'm sure we will hear more from you on a future episode of Musical Talk.
Thank you very much.
And so there you have it. 2 fantastic shows. One I hope comes back, and I urge you to explore a different side to musical theatre if it does. The other I hope you go to see at the Arts Theatre once previews begin on May the 18th. Even if you're not sure, tickets for the first 3 performances and the press night on the 22nd are only £20, and I promise you, you cannot go wrong with that. Visit www.droodwestend.com for further information. And for those of you who are unsure, Drood is spelt D-R-O-O-D. Well, that's it from me for now. Please remember to email in any questions you would like me to ask people in the industry, and I look forward to speaking to anyone I manage to get hold of and airing your views and asking your questions over the next couple of months. Until next time. This episode of Musical Talk presented by David Kingsmill and Nicholas Chave, and edited by David Kingsmill. Music copyright David Kingsmill 2012. This is Musical Talk. And now, some musical out talks.
Especially in Act 2, I get they all get at me because I have a nice rest in Act 1. So. Come on, do a little 10 minute slot and then go off and have a bit of a rest to kettle on. But then when you hit Act 2, I don't get a chance to get back to dressing. So.
Yeah, quite. Oh, it's a good way to spend Act 1.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
If you could possibly all just give me a quick hello just so I can get some volumes and work out.
Hi, my name's Kendra. I'm so awkward, I hate it.
I think we'll be fine with that.
Was he speaking English?
You can tell, they cast her in that part because of who she is.
It's not an act.
What am I on musical? That's it. What am I trying to say?
Don't know.
I don't know what I'm trying to say. I think. Oh God. This is what 2 cocktails does to you.
Yeah.